is Michael Gabbianelli, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk Tuesdays. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing climbing harnesses. The climber's harness is a very important piece of gear that actually attaches the climber to the rope, and so the harness is what we put on ourselves. We kind of wear them like a pair of pants, and that is going to strap to us securely so that we can then tie to the rope so that if we fall, that will hold us to the rope. So also we can use it as a kind of our utility belt. So we keep all of our equipment on there, everything we're going to need to carry with us as we go climbing. So I kind of like to think about it like Batman's utility belt. Like all of our gear is right there. All of our toys, all of the things we may or may not need are right there on our harness. So great. So today in this episode, we're going to talk about the harness, and we're going to introduce you guys to a few different styles. We're also going to break down the different parts of the harness, and just kind of show you, introduce you to the climber's harness. So without further ado, let's get into it. First harness I'm going to show you here is our Black Diamond harness. This is a standard harness. We actually use this one here, this style at most of our programs. All parts of the harness are the same no matter what kind of harness we're using. So we'll use this as our main demonstration to show you the different parts of the harness. So first thing you're going to notice is like this belt looking thing at the top. It's called the waist loop. So that's actually going to sit right above your hips, kind of in line with your belly button, and that's what's going to keep us, main thing that's going to keep us into the harness. That waist loop is connected to your leg loops, and so you can see one leg is going to go in each of these loops, and that's how you're going to put that harness on. This one has some somewhat adjustable leg loops, so you have a buckle here to kind of adjust the size, but you can see it's all just one fixed loop that makes this leg loop. In the front, where the waist loop and leg loop are connected, they are connected by this loop we call the belay loop. And so this is actually the loop that we're going to attach our belay devices or that with a carabiner. Those 2 points that the belay loop are attached to is actually where we're going to tie our rope in. And so rope's going to pass through these 2 points to tie yourself in when you're rock climbing. So these are tie-in points, our belay loop. On the waist loop, you're going to see these other little rubberized loops here. This is what we call a gear loop. So we're actually going to hang different gear, like I said, that we want to bring up with us. In the back, some harnesses may or may not have this. So this is what we call a haul loop. And so if we're carrying something like tailing a line up the rock climb with us, we're going to use that loop right there. These 2 little bungee straps are they're not safety requirements. They may not be on all harnesses. This really just keeps those leg loops in a nice position on the body. Great, and so that's the basic parts of a harness, right? And so the one last thing I didn't mention is you do have buckles on the harness. This one actually only has one load-bearing buckle here. These ones are just plastic just to adjust just for comfort on the leg loops. But they're not load bearing, so you can kind of see that's a plastic buckle and that's a metal buckle. Great. So those buckles are obviously very important. That's how we adjust our harness when we put it on. So that's one style of harness. That's one kind of harness, and those are the parts of the harness. But harnesses come in all styles. So there's all different kinds of companies producing these. Black Diamond is just one of those companies. And this is kind of the main thing you're going to see with most of the harnesses is this kind of breakdown, this basic style of harness. So it's got everything you need, no more than you need. You could see on the harness, you got some nice padding on the waist strap to try to kind of protect the body. Again, our rope's going to stretch, and so that's really what's going to protect our back. This is, again, more for comfort. So again, this is our Black Diamond. Then the same style of harness, right? So something that's kind of more bare bones, just has what we need and nothing we don't. We have an Arc'teryx harness as well. Same thing, right? One slight difference is these buckles here are actually load-bearing buckles on the leg loops. But you can see we have all of our basic parts, right? We have our gear loops, we have our belay loop and tie-in points, we have our leg loops, and our waist loop. So this one's just a different company, same style of harness. Another style, we'll kind of go backwards and we'll move forwards, is what we call the Black Diamond Bod. And so this one has kind of a different style to it. You can see that the belay loop is actually not attached to this strap right here. So this comes through that belay loop. And sometimes these might not even have belay loops. Also, you can kind of see how the leg loops are attached here in the front. It's a little bit different, right? So you actually put this one on and attach the leg loops afterwards. So this is an older style of harness. And one thing you'll notice with that is take a look at this buckle. This buckle is what we call a Type 1 buckle. And so that's one of the main differences you're going to find on your harness. Is it a Type 1 or a Type 2 buckle? So this is a Type 2 and this is a Type 1. The main difference is the buckle is made of 2 pieces of metal in the Type 2 and 1 piece of metal in the Type 1. So in the Type 2, you can just pull that strap where you want it nice and tight. And actually, when you pull apart on that strap, it locks this in place. And so you don't need to do anything more than pull that strap into position and you're good to go. That's really nice for convenience. And that's why they kind of came up with this Type 1 buckle, to make sure that it was safe immediately. The Type 2, sorry. The Type 1 buckle has an extra step. And so I have it locked down right now. And what we have here is our buckle, right? And so I pass it through the buckle. Right now, I have adjusted my buckle, but if I were to pull on this really hard, you can see it slips through, right? And so to lock the tail end, you actually have to pass that back through the buckle to lock it. So now that it's passed back through the buckle, it is secure. So the Type 2 buckle is a lot more popular in climbing these days because it's a little bit more foolproof, right? You just adjust it and you're safe. With the Type 1 buckle, you do need to double that back, which makes it another step to safety. So a lot of people prefer the Type 2. Type 1s can also be very good, but you do need to make sure always that you're doubling it back. So again, the Black Diamond Bod, slightly different style of harness, but all the same features pretty much. Again, like I said, sometimes you might see this one without the belay loop, and then you're talking that this climbing harness might actually have some different features. Cool. As you progress in the world of climbing, you might find out like, wow, these 4 gear loops is not enough for me. I need to carry more stuff. And the more you climb, the more gear you might need as you get into more difficult and challenging climbs. Longer climbs, things like this. So they have started developing what we call a big wall harness. And these harnesses are pretty cool because they have a lot more space for what you for your equipment and for your gear. And so this is one of my big wall examples. This is the Arc'teryx version. And what you see is 6 gear loops on here. So 1, 2, 3 there, and 1, 2, 3 there. And so that gives you more loops and more position. Also, you can see the belt area, the waist loop, is actually much thicker than our other Arc'teryx harness. Just again, if you're on a big wall where you're going to spend all day and night in this thing, you really want it to be a little more comfortable. So that's really just going to help spread that weight out. Outside of the extra loops, we're going to see that this harness is very much the same. We got our belay loop, we got our tie-in points, we got all the parts of the harness that we had on our other harness. And then one more example here is our Black Diamond. And this is the Black Diamond Big Wall harness. And you can see, again, we have our leg loops. The main difference here is the other one had Type 2 buckles, and you can see this one has Type 1 buckles. Also, this one has been outfitted with all the equipment that I normally carry on my harness. And so you can kind of see those gear loops in action, right, being used. Very cool. So again, what style you choose will really be dependent on what kind of climbing you do. And the type of buckles on that will normally be part of what the style is. What's really important with that is just to know and understand your harness and know what buckles you do have and where they're located. So you always know how to check that your harness is on properly. Great. With that being said, all of these harnesses come in a multitude of sizes and also come for females and men's since our bodies can be different. So when you're shopping for a harness, it's really important, or probably most important, to find something that fits you properly and that's comfortable. And so a certain brand might not fit your body type the same way as another brand. And so always make sure that you're trying all the options available before you make a decision. And making sure that you have a professional to help with the sizing to make sure you're not going too big or too small. You want to be right in the middle of that adjustment. Because again, they do have adjustments on these harnesses, and we can adjust this bigger or smaller depending on our size within the size. But we don't want to ever max out the buckle so it's all the way loose, or max it out so it's all the way tight and we still need it to be tighter, right? So we just want to make sure that our sizing is correct, because that is the most important thing when we're wearing those harnesses. Great. So that's a little bit about harnesses. I hope you guys learned something today, and hopefully we'll see you out there on the rock someday soon.